Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Meredith, one of the HUSQVARNA Viking educators, and it is time for another month of the Sweet Dreams block of the month for the year of 2026. So let's recap what we did in January and February, and then I will show you what we're going to do today for March. So for January, we did 3 different blocks. They're all rail fence blocks in a way, just a little different take. So we did this inspiration collage rail fence block. We did just the basic rail fence block. And again, we sewed these together with floating stitches. And then on this one, we created our own fabric with like a plaid stitch that we cut out for that one. So there was those 2 blocks. And then we had this long rail fence block also where we used floating stitches to assemble that together. So this was the month of January. And then February, we did these flying geese blocks. And I just realized I'm missing one of them, so I'm going to show you just a picture of what it looks like. But we did these big ones right here, this one, and then this one is a little bit shorter. So we did these flying geese blocks. And then we also did this one right here. I must have left it in my other room, but we did this one as well. So that's what we've done in January and February. So for March, we are going to do the friendship star blocks. So I'm going to show you what those are. So we're going to do these 3 on the side right here, and then where's the other one? It's not that. Yes, this one here. Then we're going to do this one right here. So this is like a more traditional, bigger block that we're going to be doing, and then 3 smaller ones. So we're going to start with just the friendship star, and then this one's the double friendship star is what the next one is. So for this one, let me get all these out of the way. All my instructions and everything. I've already done 2 of them just because it's super simple. I wanted you to see what they looked like, and then we're just going to sew the last one together. So here's 2 of them already, and we're going to stack these together and sew all these. So we do half square triangles and then just normal squares. We're going to sew all this together. So pretty simple block. If you're new to quilting and you haven't done half square triangles before, this is going to be a great practice one to do for as well. So I have my pieces here. I want to show you. I've got my pieces for my next one right here. You are going to have, and I'm going to show you on the instructions here too. So it wants you to have 3, 3, 3, and then 12. This is to assemble 3 different blocks. So again, I've already done the 2 here, and we're going to do 1 more. So you're cutting enough for 3 blocks. If you just wanted to do 1 to practice, you would cut 1 of A, 1 of B, 4 of these that say 12, and then 1 of that one there. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to take these 2 pieces, which are our A and our B piece right here. Or I'm sorry, not the A one. We're going to take our B and our C one right here. We're going to take these 2, which are going to be these right here. And we're going to cut these in quarters. So I'm just going to put my mat up here. And if you don't have one of these mats, this is our quilter's set mat. And there is a right to a wrong. I've got little specks on this one. So we're going to line up here, and then it comes with this ruler I'm using as well as the rotary blade. It comes with a pack of needles and then an extra rotary blade as well. So we're going to line this up, and what I want to do is I want to make sure that the straight edge of this triangle is also on the straight edge of my ruler. I don't want to get in the way, but I want to see you here too. There we go. And then cut that there, and then do the same thing over here. I don't like to layer when I'm doing things like this. I want to make sure that everything is accurate here. We are going to have a little bit of wiggle room to square them up once we get done here as well. So let's line this up. And I took a risk, y'all. I went ahead and did this lined one for triangles, and it worked out. I think it worked out really well on these first one. All of my lines, go the same way. I was very intentional about that when I assembled all of them. So it's completely up to you if you have a directionally based fabric or not, but just keep that in mind when you are cutting, that all of your directions go the right way. And if not, that's fine too, because I have some that they are directionally based, but they sort of, it's a patchwork one, so it's okay. So we have these 4 triangles here, and we're just going to sew them together right here on the angle, which is the bias. But again, don't be intimidated by this at all. I did spray these with a little bit of best press and press them so they have a little bit of stability to them with starch, but again, they're still pretty wobbly as well. But we're going to sew all of these together along this diagonal line. So let's get to it. And we're going to chain piece all of these together. So if you are new to quilting, what that means is we're going to sew 2 of these triangles together like that, and then we're just going to leave it. And our needle's in the down position so that when we sew the next one, our presser foot raised up just a little bit so that we can get our next triangle under there, just like this. And then you just keep sewing. Make sure everything's lined up as you go down. My points together. It's kind of hard with my white table and the white fabric on the bottom. I do have my IDF engaged as well, so that definitely will help when you're sewing on the bias here. Got my next one. I'm going to line these up. Just like this. And one more. And then we're going to cut. And here we have our little pigtail, our chained piece of all of these pieces. And then we're just going to snip that thread between them. And I'm going to take all of these over to my iron and press them towards the yellow line side. And then we're going to come back and square these up. So I will be right back. All right, now I have pressed all of these half square triangles together just like that. And again, I sewed on the bias, really easy. So these are about 3.5 by 3.5, but we want them, if you look at the instructions, we want them to be 3 1/4 like this. So we are going to square them up. And so I have this one little ruler right here, and it's got a little cutout in the middle of it so that you can line up that angle. I'm going to do my best not to get in the way. Let's zoom in just a little bit here so that I can get closer over and not be in the way. So we want to, this way right here, make sure that we want this to be 3 1/4. So we just want to make sure we have a 3 1/4, that our fabric is still within that space. So we're going to cut these 2 here. And what's really cool about this mat, and I don't know if I have it locked. I do have it locked. So this mat actually rotates. So on the back side, we can unlock it and we can spin it. So let's get this back on here. And then we can spin this right here to where we want it. And so we want this at 3 1/4. So I cut these 2 sides just a minute ago. Let me scoot this up a little bit so you can see. I cut these 2 sides. Now we're going to square up the other 2 sides. So I want to line my fabric up with 3 1/4 and 3 1/4 right there. And then we can cut right here, just like that. So we're going to do that for all 4 of them, and then we're going to sew our block together. And there we go. We have 4 half square triangles squared up to 3 1/4 by 3 1/4. So now what we want to do, I like to lay out what my block is going to be like before I sew it together to just make sure, again, if you have a directionally based fabric, that it's going the way that you want it to go. So let's put this one up here. We want this guy down here. We want this one over here. And it takes a little bit of playing with this one this way. And then this one this way. So then again, all of my striped lines are going in the same direction. And then we're going to put these 4 corners together right here. Again, I've got some little dots on them, so I just want to make sure I've got the right side up. And then we can just take these pieces over to our machine and sew them together. So let's get to it. Okay, so what I did was I took the first two in each row and I chain pieced them together, just like that. So let's open them up so you can see what that looks like. So there we go. So now we're going to then sew all of these remaining three on. All right, so let's cut these apart here. So you can see now we have our 3 strips right here. And we're going to sew all of these together. But before we do that, I'm going to take this over to my iron and press these. I'm going to press this one and the bottom one towards the white, and then I'm going to press this inside one towards the inside. And you'll see why in a minute when we put these 2 points together. It's going to help get them lined up really good and clean and crisp. So we'll be right back. Okay, so I went ahead and pressed all of those the way we talked about. And now we're going to sew all these together for our finished block. But I want to show you, let's come back over, let's do this one here, what I meant by intersecting those seams there. So this one's going to go on the top here. And so this one I have pressed this way and this one I have pressed this way. It makes it so much easier to get these lined up right here when they go in different directions. So they sort of like snug into each other just like that. And then we're going to take a pin. We get 2 over here. We're going to take a pin and pin that in place and do the same thing over here. So you're going to see they sort of just sandwich right into each other and in place just like that. So now we're going to sew down the seam right here. So I've got all this lined up. Make sure my starting point is straight. And when you get up to that seam, you want to make sure you pull your pin out. Make sure everything's lined up. And continue sewing. So when you look at that, all of these points lined up really well right there. So now we're going to do the same thing with the top piece here. We're going to line these up where our seams meet and just pin it in place. Try not to poke ourselves at the same time. Line those up and pin in place just like that. And then we're going to sew across the seam here. There you have it. So now we can go over to our iron and press these to have good finished clean blocks, and then we'll sew them all together. All right, and there you have it. So we have 3 of these friendship star blocks ready to be sewn together. So let's just sew those together really quick. That way we're done with this block and we will move on to the double friendship star. So I'm just gonna, which direction do I want these to go in? I kind of want the yellow in the middle maybe, because it's a little bit lighter than the other 2. Let me back up so y'all can see here. That's forward. I think I'm going to do it in this order here. That way the lighter is in the middle of the 2. So again, same thing here. We are going to line up those seams just like that and pin them in place. And do the same thing over here. And in a perfect world, they would line up if you lined up your edges, but that doesn't always happen like that. So I like to get these seams together first. I also wanted to mention this block unfinished should be 8.5 by 8.5. So that way when it's finished, it's going to be 8 by 8. So let's sew these two together. Make sure our edges are lined up. All right, and now we are going to sew this one to our yellow one down here at the bottom. And this time it just happens like that sometimes. Actually, let's see here. So I have my lines going this way on this one. Let's turn it this way. So you see, again, directionally based. I've got my lines on the yellow going this way, but I have them on blue going this way. So let's make the pink go that way as well. And then that way our seams will line up to the way we want them to. So again, when you have a directionally based fabric, you really got to be mindful, if it matters to you, which way they go. Line this one up here. And sew this together. So just like that, we have our friendship star block done. And this is how it'll be on our quilt. It'll be vertical like this. So very fun, very easy. Just half square triangles and some basic square blocks. So let's do our next block, the double friendship star. So that's going to be this guy right here. And I've already started a little bit of it, and I wanted to give you my take on it because I did the cutting just a little bit differently. I wanted to be more useful with my sewing, or effective, productive with my sewing time, I should say. So for this one, it wants you to cut all of these squares that are in the 4-patch into individual pieces. And I was like, this can be done a little bit easier. So what I did, and I've already done half of them so you could see, I went ahead, oh, not those two, these two. I've already done 2 of them, but I went ahead and I cut 2 strips. So let me show you what I did. It needed to be, originally it was 3 1/4 square by 3 1/4 squares for each one. So I went ahead and did my math of how much I needed to get 4 of those together, and it comes out to be 3 1/4 by 14. So because we are using fat quarters, you can't get, we need that times 2. You can't get 28 out of a fat quarter. So I went ahead and did this twice. So I have 2. I had one of my white and one of my blue, and same here. I had 2 white, 2 blue, 3 1/4 by 14 inches. And that's a little bit more than what we need. So we have a little bit of wiggle room when we're cutting them up and squaring them into our strips. So I just wanted to show you another way that you could put 4 patches together, things like that, to simplify putting these blocks together. So we're just going to sew these together all the way down this one strip here. All right, so we have these 2 strips sewn together now. So I've already done this once. This is my second time of doing this. The first time, I've already made them into the blocks. So I'm on my second time. You guys can do it with the 8 squares if you want, or you can do the strips like me. So I'm going to go press this, and then we're going to cut this down and then re-sew them back together. People that don't sew, they kind of find it funny that we buy perfectly good fabric. We cut it, we sew it together, we cut it some more, and then we sew it back together. It's funny. It's when you think about it that way. So let's go press this, and we'll be right back. All right, so I have sewn my strip together, and now we are going to cut this down into 3 1/4 inch strips, and then we're going to sew them back together. So let's come over here, move my instructions and my finished blocks. I don't want to accidentally cut those. So let's square this up first, because you see that these don't meet exactly at the end. So I'm going to make sure that I'm straight here. And again, I gave you a little bit of extra with that 14 inches. So you have a little bit of wiggle room there. And then we are going to, let me just double check that that's what that is. 3 1/4. So, and again, we want to make sure we have a straight line on the top or the bottom or this middle seam. And then we want 1, 2, 3 1/4 right there. Trying not to get in the way of the camera, but also make sure we're good. So we need 4 of these. So there's 1. One more, here we go. Yeah, always measure twice, cut once. And our last one. So again, you have a little bit of extra there. So we have these 4 pieces, and we're going to sew them into a 4 patch now. So we want to put 2 of them together this way and 2 of them together this way. So let's sew these together. And again, it goes back to having your seams pressed in opposite directions so that when you put them together, they sandwich really cleanly together, and you can just pin them in place just like this. And this one, just like that. So let's sew these 2 together. All right, and there you have it. So now we have 2 more 4 patches, and we're going to go press them and move on to our next part of our block. All right, so super quick and easy. I've got those 2, and then I have my 2 that I originally did. So we have 4 of these 4 patch blocks. We're just going to set them aside and move on to the next part. So we are going to do these double half square triangles. So this part right here is a half square triangle, but I'm trying to see. The light blue and the white is the half square triangle here. So we're doing this backwards. And then we're going to add on that second part to it as well. So I've already done half of this for us because it's basically the same as what we had done already. So you have, let's see if I can explain this right here. So you have 1 6.5 or 6 3/4, which is the blue one here. And then you have 1 6 3/4 piece right here. So what I did the same that I did on our first friendship star. I took that square and I cut it in quarters along the angle, just like that. But this time, originally when we did it, we sewed these long 2 sides together here. But for this one, we're going to sew 2 of those shorter sides. So that's what I did here. So again, I took square B and this white square E down here at the bottom, and I cut them in quarters. It was 1 square. I cut them in quarters on the diagonal, and then I sewed them together along one of the shorter sides, not the longer side here. I did it on this side here. So we have 4 of those here. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to set those aside just for a minute. Next, you have these 2 right here, these 2 6.5 by 6.5. We are going to cut them just in half once this time. So we want 1 full half square triangle versus the half of the half there. So let's cut these in half. So that gives us 2. And then here is 2 more. Just like that. So now what we're going to do, we're going to take these that we had sewn together here, and we're going to sew this to it now. So we're going to have a block just like this. So we're going to put them together and sew all of those together. So let's go ahead and chain piece all of these together. Okay, so now we have all of these sewn together. Let's separate them. So now we have 4 of these half square triangles to half square triangles. So I'm going to go press these, and then we're going to assemble our whole block together, and it's really simple and quick. Okay, so we have our half square triangles right here. I have 4 of them, and they need to be 6 by 6. So I just went ahead and cleaned up the edges just a little bit, but they should measure 6 by 6 when you get done. So now let's lay this all out because this is a big block. We want to make sure we have everything going in the right direction. So this is going to be our center one here, this main 6x6 one. I have all my stuff here. And then we're going to have this guy here and this one here, right? And that one and that one. Right? Does that look right? No, that's not right. This way. There we go. That looks better. And then our 4 patches are going to go over here in the corners. So we are just going to sew the same way that we did our blocks for our little ones. So these 2, chain piece them, and then we'll add in the next one. So let's get to it. All right, and there we have it. There's our first 2 together. So let's separate those. So this one's going to go here. This one's going to go here. And this one's going to go here. So now we're going to sew these on to the sides here. All right, and so now we have our 3 strips sewn. So just like this. I just realized, do you guys see it? Do you see it? I bet y'all saw it before I even started. This guy, I need to flip him. He should go this way with this blue in the corner. See how these are? I bet y'all were screaming at the camera when I was doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and take that apart, re-sew it, and then we're going to sew these together. Okay, so I fixed my 4 patch down at the bottom corner. Again, I'm sure y'all were looking at the camera just yelling at me saying, no, turn it, turn it. But when it's so big and I'm looking right here, like it's hard to see and just everything going on. So let's come back over here so you can see. Here's our middle strip. And here's one. And then there's the other. So we're going to sew all of these together now. Again, same way that we did our single friendship star ones, just lining up these. I went ahead and pressed it too just a moment ago, so I can just get right to it with you guys. So let's pin these together and sew it together, and we will finish up our friendship star block. All right, so there's our first one together, and our points have lined up really well. So now let's sew this next one up here. All right, and here you have it. Here, and I'm going to go ahead and press it too, but here is our large double friendship star. So this month we did the single friendship star and the double friendship star. So this is what you're going to have for the single ones, one strip just like this, and then you're going to have your bigger one right here. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Very simple, doing half square triangles, sewing on the bias, a little trick for doing 4 patches. I think it goes a little bit quicker to do the strips versus sewing a bunch of squares together. So just test it out. When you do 4 patch, things like that, you just got to do the math just a little bit, but it's really simple math. So I hope you enjoyed that. And if you have any questions, feel free to add those in the chat, and I will see you next month for April for our next blocks. I'll see you then.